quaint town of Milbrook, where the air carries the scent of pine and the distant murmur of a restless river. New Year's Eve unfolds not with the jubilant clinking of glasses or the vibrant burst of fireworks, but with an oppressive silence that settles over the streets like a heavy fog. For generations, the townsfolk have adhered to a ritual as old as the town itself, a tradition whispered about in tones of reverence and fear: the consumption of a small blue tablet called a dream drop. Swallowed just before midnight, these pills ensure a deep, dreamless sleep as the new year dawns, a practice upheld by every family with a fervent, almost sacred diligence. Parents pass down this custom to their children with warm smiles and vague assurances of safety, but beneath the surface lies a secret so dark, so unfathomable, that it has shaped the very soul of Milbrook. Zoe Anderson, a 17-year-old with a mind too curious for the town's enforced slumber, decided to defy this tradition on one fateful New Year's Eve. What she uncovered that night would shatter her understanding of reality, plunging her into a cosmic nightmare that stretched far beyond the pine-laden borders of her hometown. This is her story, a descent into terror, a battle against ancient entities, and a revelation of a town bound by a pact with forces beyond human comprehension, enriched by the haunting historical account of Walter Mills, a sailor who glimpsed the same horror in 1962 aboard the USS Eldridge. Milbrook, at first glance, is the epitome of small-town charm. Its streets are lined with clapboard houses painted in soft pastels, their porches adorned with rocking chairs that creak in the gentle breeze. The town square boasts a quaint diner, a library with sagging shelves, and a general store where locals exchange gossip over cups of burnt coffee. Towering pines encircle the town, their needles carpeting the ground in a rust-colored blanket, while the Black Ridge River winds lazily through the valley, its waters reflecting the gray sky above. Tourists passing through might stop to snap photos of the scenery, charmed by the rustic simplicity, but they never stay long. There's an unspoken heaviness in the air, a weight that presses down on the shoulders of those who linger, as if the town itself whispers for them to leave. For Zoe Anderson, Milbrook was home, but it was also a puzzle. Growing up, she had accepted the New Year's Eve tradition without question. Every year, as December 31st approached, her parents would gather the family in the kitchen, the warm glow of a single bulb casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. Her mother, with her soft voice and tired eyes, would hand Zoe and her younger brother Tommy a dream drop, the blue pill small enough to fit in the palm of a child's hand. "It'll keep you safe," she'd say, her smile genuine but tinged with something Zoe could never place. Perhaps fear, perhaps resignation. Her father, a man of few words, would nod in agreement, his calloused hands resting on the table as he watched them swallow the pills with glasses of tap water. By 11:30 p.m., the Anderson household would be asleep, the lights dimmed, the windows shuttered, and the television left on to mask the silence with the distant cheers of a New Year's Eve broadcast from a city far away. But as Zoe grew older, the ritual began to gnaw at her. At 17, she was no longer content with the vague assurances of safety. She noticed the way adults in Milbrook avoided discussing New Year's Eve, their conversations shifting abruptly to mundane topics like the weather or the upcoming harvest festival. At school, her friends offered little clarity. Liam, with his infectious laugh and carefree demeanor, dismissed her concerns as paranoia. "Geez, Zoe, not everything's a conspiracy," he teased, his eyes crinkling with amusement. Noah, the group's rational thinker, suggested it might be a local custom, akin to dry laws in other towns, but his explanation felt hollow. Only Ava, with her quiet empathy, acknowledged the strangeness. "It is a little odd," she admitted one day at lunch, her fork pausing mid-air as she considered Zoe's words. "My folks are the same. They're adamant we're all asleep before midnight." Zoe's unease deepened as she observed the town's collective behavior. No one in Milbrook hosted New Year's Eve parties. No one gathered to watch the ball drop in Times Square, a ritual she'd seen on TV and longed to experience. The streets were empty by 10 p.m., the houses dark, the air thick with an unspoken tension. It was as if the entire town held its breath, waiting for something to pass. Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that they were hiding from something that emerged at midnight, something they weren't meant to see. On the night of December 31st, Zoe stood in her kitchen, the clock on the microwave glowing 11:30 p.m. in stark green digits. The house was quiet, save for the muted sounds of the television in the living room, where her parents sat on the worn couch, their faces illuminated by the flickering screen. Tommy's footsteps echoed faintly from upstairs as he prepared for bed, his innocence a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Zoe's mind. She held the dream drop in her hand, its smooth surface catching the light, and felt a surge of defiance. This year she would not sleep. This year she would uncover the truth. Filling a glass with water from the sink, Zoe walked into the living room, the glass cool against her palm. Her parents glanced up, their expressions a mix of warmth and something else. Nervousness, perhaps, or anticipation. "Ready for bed, honey?" her mother asked, her voice tight, as if she were holding back a flood of emotion. Zoe nodded, forcing a smile, and pretended to swallow the pill, tucking it under her tongue with a skill she'd perfected years ago during a phase of refusing allergy medication. She took a large gulp of water, the pill bitter against her tongue, and her father's shoulders visibly relaxed. "Good girl," he said, his voice soft but relieved. "Have a good sleep, Zoe. We'll see you in the morning." She hugged them both, the embrace a silent battle against the frustration threatening to spill out, and made her way upstairs. In her room, Zoe spat the pill into the toilet, watching it disappear in a swirl of water. She changed into her pajamas, the fabric soft against her skin, and climbed into bed, leaving the bedside lamp on to create the illusion of normalcy. Propping herself up with pillows, she pulled a book from her nightstand, a worn copy of The Haunting of Hill House, and pretended to read, her eyes darting to the clock every few minutes. The house settled into a deep silence, broken only by Tommy's light snores across the hall. At 11:55, she heard her parents' bedroom door close, a soft click that echoed in the stillness. Her heart raced, a cocktail of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. Whatever happened tonight, she would know more than she did now. At 11:59, Zoe closed her book and moved to the window, parting the curtains to peer into the darkened street. The houses along her street were pitch black, their windows reflecting the faint glow of streetlights. Mr. Chen's bungalow across the way stood silent, its curtains drawn. Then, as the clock ticked to midnight, the sky beyond her window shimmered, a ripple of light that seemed to bend reality itself. Zoe blinked, certain it was a trick of her tired eyes, but the phenomenon persisted. Translucent forms descended from the heavens, their movements sinuous and fluid, defying the laws of physics. As they drew closer, she could make out their shapes. Enormous jellyfish-like creatures, their bell-shaped bodies glowing with an otherworldly luminescence, their long tendrils trailing behind them like gossamer threads, reaching hungrily toward the ground. Zoe's breath hitched in her chest as one of the creatures floated toward Mr. Chen's bungalow, its tendrils brushing against the bedroom window before piercing through the glass as if it were nothing. A muffled shout, Mr. Chen's voice, pierced the silence, only to be abruptly silenced. Through the window, Zoe saw the creature's tendrils wrap around Mr. Chen's limp form, his glasses hanging askew on his face, his body motionless as the entity dragged him upward. The faint metallic clatter of his glasses hitting the ground below reached her ears despite the distance, a sound that seared itself into her memory. The creature ascended, pulling Mr. Chen into the shadows above, his lifeless face, eyes open, mouth agape, visible for one final, haunting moment before he vanished. Staggering back from the window, Zoe's legs trembled, her mind struggling to process the horror unfolding before her. More creatures drifted between the buildings, their tendrils reaching into windows and emerging with struggling forms. Neighbors, friends, people she'd known her entire life. A strange thrumming filled the air, a vibration that resonated in her bones, a sensation more felt than heard. It was accompanied by a high-pitched whine that pierced through the ringing in her ears, a sound that refused to be silenced even as she clamped her hands over her ears. Time seemed to stretch, minutes or hours lost to the paralyzing terror that gripped her, until the creatures lifted en masse into the sky, vanishing as swiftly as they had appeared. The silence that followed was absolute, a void that swallowed the night. Zoe collapsed onto her bed, her mind spinning with the incomprehensible horror she had witnessed. She had no idea where Mr. Chen and the others had been taken, or why her parents had insisted on sleep. As dawn broke, pale light filtering through her curtains, she awoke disoriented, the memory of the night too vivid to be a dream. Rising on shaky legs, she returned to the window, peering through the blinds. The street looked pristine, as if nothing had happened. No broken windows, no scorch marks, no signs of the incursion. But a faint iridescent residue on Mr. Chen's window caught her eye, shimmering in the early morning sunlight, a silent testament to the reality of her nightmare. Downstairs, the house hummed with normalcy. The scent of coffee and bacon wafted from the kitchen, and the muffled sounds of the television drifted through the air. Her mother greeted her with a bright, happy new year as she stacked pancakes on a platter, her father folding his newspaper with a smile. Tommy bounded in, chattering about going to the park, his innocence a stark contrast to the dread coiling in Zoe's chest. She sat at the table, her hands trembling around her fork, waiting for someone to mention Mr. Chun, to acknowledge the horror of the night. But the conversation remained mundane. New Year's resolutions, plans for the day, the Christmas decorations that needed to come down. How could they be so nonchalant? How had they slept through the abductions? Desperate for answers, Zoe offered to take the garbage out, using the excuse to step outside. The street was a picture of normalcy. Mrs. Patel walked her dog, the Johnsons loaded their SUV for a trip, and Mr. Chen's house stood silently across the way. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, Zoe crossed the street and knocked on his door, her heart pounding. No answer. She knocked louder, calling his name, but the house remained silent. Peering through the front window, she saw a tidy living room. A coffee mug on the table, a stack of magazines. Everything in place, as if Mr. Chun might step out at any moment. But she knew better. She had seen him taken. As she turned to leave, she nearly collided with Liam, who was jogging along the sidewalk. "Hey, Zoe, you okay? You're white as a sheet," he said, grabbing her shoulders. She stammered a response, unable to articulate the horror she'd witnessed, and Liam shrugged, mentioning the strange dreams the dream drops gave him before jogging off. The weeks that followed were a descent into paranoia for Zoe. Every shadow made her jump. Every creak of the house sent her heart racing. Sleep became a battleground, her nights filled with lucid nightmares of glowing tendrils bursting through her window, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her into the void. She'd wake tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, gasping for air, the memory of Mr. Chen's lifeless face haunting her every moment. At school, her distraction became impossible to hide. Her grades plummeted, her focus shattered by the constant replay of that night. Mrs. Hanson, her history teacher, noticed her decline, pulling her aside after class with a concerned smile. "Zoe, is everything okay at home? You've seemed distracted," she asked. Zoe forced a smile, blaming her sleeplessness, but the lie felt hollow. Her friends grew increasingly worried. Liam, Ava, and Noah cornered her in the hallway, their faces etched with concern. "You've been acting strange since New Year's," Ava said softly, placing a hand on Zoe's arm. "We're your friends, we want to help." Noah adjusted his glasses, his analytical mind searching for answers. "If something's wrong, you can trust us," he added. Liam's expression darkened with worry. "Zoe, whatever it is, we can handle it." Torn between the fear of being dismissed and the weight of her secret, Zoe hesitated. But at a library study session that evening, exhaustion and desperation broke her resolve. "It's about New Year's Eve," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't take the pill that night. I saw creatures. They came from the sky like giant jellyfish and they took people, Mr. Chun, others. They passed through walls, dragged them away." She recounted every detail, expecting mockery, but instead found shocked recognition. Liam admitted to dreams of glowing tentacles. Ava recalled a strange noise that night, and Noah pondered the implications. Together, they realized this wasn't just their family's secret. It was the town's. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe and her friends turned to the town library. Its musty stacks a repository of Milbrook's history. Zoe pored over a thick volume titled Milbrook, a centennial history, her fingers trailing along the yellowed pages as she searched for clues. She discovered a chilling pattern. Every few years, around New Year's Eve, someone vanished. The Johnsons in 1985, the Patels in 1992, the Chens this year. Each disappearance explained away as an accident, a sudden move, or a family emergency, but always within a narrow window of time. The surviving families relocated shortly after, and no one seemed to notice the pattern. Liam joined her, his eyes widening as he read her notes. "This is huge, Zoe," he whispered. "It's been going on for decades. Maybe longer." Their investigation took them to the streets of Milbrook, knocking on doors under the guise of a school project on local history. Most residents slammed their doors shut, their faces tight with suspicion. Mrs. Miller, whose daughter vanished in 1998, dismissed them with a curt, "I have no interest in talking about the old days." An elderly man threatened to call the sheriff if they didn't leave his porch. Discouraged, they nearly gave up, until Zoe spotted a house at the end of Maple Street, its facade painted in vibrant colors, wind chimes swaying in the breeze. The name Iris Blackwood was scrawled on the mailbox in flowing cursive. Iris, a woman with long silver hair and piercing blue eyes, welcomed them with an unsettling knowingness. Her home was a gallery of art, paintings and sculptures that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. She led them to her studio, where she unveiled a canvas that stole Zoe's breath, a darkened sky alive with the twisting, glowing shapes of the creatures she'd seen. "You've seen them," Iris said, her voice a mix of pity and warning. She revealed Milbrook's dark history. The town was built on a confluence of ley lines, thinning the veil to otherworldly realms. Its founders had made a pact with these dream harvesters, offering one soul annually in exchange for prosperity. The elders enforced this covenant, distributing dream drops to ensure the town slept through the abductions, oblivious to the sacrifice. Iris's words landed like a blow. "One soul per year to feed the beasts and uphold the covenant," she said, her voice heavy with disgust. "The elders decide who is sacrificed, and they ensure no one knows." Zoe thought of the dream drops, the shuttered town, the disappearances. It all fit together in a horrifying mosaic. Liam's hands balled into fists. "We need to stop this," he said, his voice trembling with anger. But Iris warned them of the dangers. The elders would protect their secret at all costs, and the entities could manipulate dreams, bending reality itself. "You've already attracted their attention by staying awake," she cautioned, sliding forward a painting of Zoe and her friends, enshrouded in ominous darkness. The story of Milbrook's horror is not isolated. In 1962, Walter Mills, a young sailor aboard the USS Eldridge, encountered a parallel nightmare that hints at a larger cosmic force. Mills' account, discovered among stolen documents, begins on a crisp autumn morning as he reported for a classified naval mission. The air buzzed with tension as he boarded the ship, noticing a group of figures in flowing robes and crimson masks, later dubbed the Secret Ones. Their eerie grace unnerved him, and even Captain Hollister seemed on edge in their presence. The mission's secrecy was palpable. The crew was issued cyanide pills, ordered to take them if captured or compromised, a precaution that chilled Mills to the bone. The mission spiraled into chaos. Briggs, a young sailor, died after taking the pill as a joke, his lifeless body a grim reminder of the stakes. Tensions rose, culminating in a violent confrontation between Myers and Yondell, the latter succumbing to cyanide in a desperate act of defiance. Mills, seeking answers, stumbled upon a horrifying truth. One of the Secret Ones, in a private cabin, revealed its inhuman form, its body shifting like living clay, its face a mass of tentacles surrounding a single unblinking eye. The creature's presence defied biology, its self-mutilation a grotesque ritual that left Mills fleeing in terror. As the ship sailed into an unnatural darkness, no stars, no moon, only an endless void, the Secret Ones set up strange equipment, their actions frantic. A storm of cosmic proportions struck, revealing vast, tentacled monstrosities in the sky, their eyes larger than moons focusing on the ship with malevolent interest. A colossal wave flooded the bridge, and Mills faced a creature whose eye peered in, its alien consciousness probing his mind, sifting through memories with cold precision. Clinging to thoughts of his family, Mills resisted, and the creature retreated, leaving him adrift on debris in the Pacific. Rescued by fishermen, he discovered documents revealing the truth. The secret ones served Eden, a cosmic entity that seeded life on Earth, now corrupted by humanity's darker impulses. Their mission was to awaken Eden, purging humanity to save the universe. A plan that echoed the horrors Zoe faced in Milbrook. Armed with Iris's revelations and Mills' historical account, Zoe and her friends resolved to end Milbrook's cycle of sacrifice. Researching supernatural lore, they learned that UV light and salt might repel the entities, a theory drawn from ancient texts and modern ghost hunting practices. As the next New Year's Eve approached, they focused on the lighthouse keeper's house, where the Peterson family had recently moved in, their arrival suspiciously timed. Zoe's gut clenched at the sight of the children, a boy and girl, full of excitement, knowing they could be the next victims. On the night of December 31st, Zoe and her friends positioned themselves around the house, armed with UV flashlights and bags of salt. The streets were silent, the town asleep under the dream drop spell. As midnight neared, the air shimmered, and the creatures descended, their glowing forms both beautiful and terrifying. Zoe's UV light blazed to life, its purplish glow causing the entities to recoil, their forms flickering where the beam touched. Salt thrown into their midst dissolved them into wisps of light, but their numbers grew, their hunger palpable in the frigid air. The friends formed a protective line, their flashlights and salt holding the creatures at bay, but the entities pressed closer, flanking them with eerie precision. Realizing they needed a stronger defense, they lured the creatures to the lighthouse, where Noah ignited the Fresnel lens, its powerful beam disintegrating the entities in a symphony of silent screams. But the creatures began to reform, their resilience a chilling reminder of their otherworldly nature. Liam proposed a desperate plan, using snow machines from the nearby ski resort to distribute salt as a continuous barrier. Racing against time, they set up the machines, the salt-laden snow creating a protective ring around the town as the creatures retreated into the night. The battle left Zoe and her friends forever changed. The Petersons, still asleep in their home, remained unaware of the danger they'd escaped, but the town awoke to whispers of the lighthouse's light, a beacon that had pierced the midnight veil. Zoe's fight, mirrored by Mill's struggle against Eden, revealed a cosmic horror that transcended time, a force that fed on humanity's darkness, a force that Milbrook had bargained with for centuries. As you immerse yourself in this tale, ask yourself, what secrets lie buried in the traditions of your own town? Would you dare to stay awake at midnight, to face the unknown that might descend from the sky? This story, crafted by the Forbidden Excavation, invites you into the shadows of Milbrook, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurs, where the price of truth is a confrontation with the incomprehensible. Dare you step into the darkness?